My grand gesture to Rachel is going to be so spectacular that she will never forget it.
I'm Jack Brame. I wrote and directed a short film called The Grand Gesture. I'm sitting here with the star of the show, David Gow. David, you've just seen the film.
First time.
Let's talk about it. I know it's been so long.
I know. I saw the trailer and you showed me just sort of stills, but this is my first time seeing all of it.
So, what do you think?
So I think, well, I'll quote myself after I saw it. The two things I said was visually it looks incredible.
Sure, thank you.
And it's so much creepier than I thought it was going to be, which I love.
I know that one of the things you said to me was, I love a character like this because it's juicy.
Yeah.
So I guess take me through crafting the character. What happens between script and screen for you?
Yeah. Well, sort of similar to like the old trope they say with comedy of like you don't want to play the comedy. Like you don't want to try to be funny because then it's not funny. You just want to tell the truth inside maybe a ridiculous character that you make. The same thing, I kind of approached The Grand Gesture and Lawrence with that mentality of I need to think of this from inside his perspective and not how the audience will see him. Because the audience is going to see him as a psycho. Right. And I can't think of him as a psycho. I have to think of him as just fiercely rooted in what he wants and his truth, which is his own version of the truth, but it's his truth. And so I just had to sit with that of don't play into, ooh, something's up with this guy. Just tell the truth to the audience of this is my truth, this is my reality. But anytime that you have that challenge where your truth is outside of the perceived truth of the people watching for an actor is very interesting.
Yeah. When I see you perform as Lawrence, I look at it and I'm like, well, that's Lawrence. Like now when I look back and I read the original script that I wrote 3 years ago, you don't care about him. But in your Lawrence, when I saw you kind of go through it and when I thought of you in it, I wrote him a little softer, a little sweeter, a little, you care about him. You were kind of rooting for him, I guess. And I guess, we watched it upstairs with your family and they were rooting for you. So I don't know if that's me doing my job well or if they're biased. Or...
Yeah, that was very exciting when the film ended that there was a polarizing response.
Yeah.
Which anytime I'm doing art in any way, that's ideal. Because you want a dialogue after of different reactions. But also, I remember when we were rehearsing it and you said, here's the script, but if anything seems sort of unnatural, you can replace it with your own words and stuff, which I appreciated it. And I was thinking maybe, but then I don't think we really did.
When you and I got together here and just talked about it and kind of read through the script for the very first time, my first thought was literally, oh, I'm a good writer. Because hearing you say those words, I was like, okay, that feels real. It feels good. And I guess that's what a great actor does is makes you feel validated as a writer.
Oh, good. When you're writing, do you kind of have, I mean, I know from Lawrence you were picturing yourself, but like for the other characters, do you have sort of a visual or a face to the characters?
Yes.
Yeah.
I almost can't write without that.
Right.
Like originally I was thinking Ulysses, the character of Reeve, I was thinking like a white guy with a long beard and a man bun, just like a really modern looking, hipster looking guy.
Yeah.
But all I really needed of that was modern looking, cool, and Ulysses is cool. I saw Ulysses in a film called Rich Kids and I kind of started the recruitment process after that. But it's like with a lot of things with this film. I didn't realize it at first how perfect someone like him was going to be. We're sitting in this room where we shot the final scene and I didn't realize this was going to be the room. Even though I was looking for a room that looks just like this, I was looking for that at the time. And I walked in this room and I was like, oh yeah, this is a nice place. It's so great. And I even said out loud, I said, I'd love to shoot a movie here.
Oh, did you really? when you first came to this house?
I did. And because there's so many different colors in this house, a yellow room there, a red room here. There's a blue room upstairs. Like I didn't put it together.
Yeah. But, were there places that you were interested in filming in that you were like, ooh, that'd be great, but we'd have to pay a bunch of money for it, so we'll do these instead? Or did you kind of just luck out that all of the locations you kind of like...
Well, and when I talk about this film, I say the stars aligned, right?
Yeah.
And it was tricky. The only thing that didn't align was you were directing a show at the time.
Yeah, that was
And
crazy.
you missed rehearsal for me, and I'm so in debt to you, and I felt so
One
bad.
rehearsal though, it was fine.
Okay.
I think. It's funny because at the time, so I was directing a show here in Houston. There was like a 30-person musical.
Yeah.
Super, super complicated show that had like 600 different endings. It was like the hardest show I've ever directed. And then that would end at like 10 o'clock and then I would come meet you and film. And even just saying that out loud, I would die for that schedule now after the year that we've had.
Sure.
But I'm like a psycho. Like that's all I want to be doing is that kind of stuff. That's my dream schedule. Like an empty calendar is my worst nightmare, which has been the bulk of 2020.
Yeah.
But that was a crazy 2-week stretch.
What was your favorite, just like memory from shooting, not preparing for the film or anything? Was there something in particular that you found memorable, or?
I mean, filming at the Citadel was fun because it was a nice feeling of the collaboration of all hands on deck. Everyone's here. This is how like guerrilla style filming is done of all these people doing it. My favorite memories of filming though are when they would call cut and I would look over and see that you were like emotional with how you were literally watching your dream come true in front of you, which is like all actors in the moment of filming want to do is make the director happy.
Yeah.
So the moments where I could see that you were watching your vision come to life in front of you those are my favorite memories.
That was the thing. Me and my assistant director on the film, Adam Castillo, who is such a badass, we are total opposites in that way. He doesn't get emotional about the films. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there just like crying after we're done. I'm just like, I don't want it to be over, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's a mixture of that, and then it's also relief, right? It's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
this film, when I originally wrote it, was never going to be something I was going to shoot because I couldn't. I was like, well, I'm not going to. That's too big, I can't do that. And then start meeting enough people, start learning enough things, and realizing, oh, maybe there are ways we can do this. And Adam being one of those people was a great balance for me, where he's got to be the logical side saying they're about to kick us out.
Right.
And I got to be the emotional side kicking it into gear and saying, I'm not leaving until we get everything.
Yeah.
So let's split the crew up into 3 parts and get 3 shots at a time and get out of here. And I just remember the last shot on day 2 at the Citadel. We shot for 4 days, so day 3, because those were the middle 2 days. The last shot was you coming to the door and hesitating.
Right.
I want to say that was the last shot, or at least it was the last shot with you.
I think it was.
Okay.
Or it was my last shot of the day.
Okay,
Yeah.
because Ulysses and Michelle had rapped before that, so that was the last shot. And then once we got that, I just came over and hugged you, and I was like,
That was my favorite memory. Yeah. Because also, I mean, I probably got the script 4 to 6 weeks before we filmed.
Yeah.
And then I'm there filming for 4 days. But that has been your baby for
So
way
long.
before we get there. So you've had a relationship to this project for forever.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
and I'll tell you kind of something I've been going through recently is now it's over. And like over. Now, not over in the sense that, I mean, we can, and I'm going to revisit this story when it comes time to do a feature film, because I think there's just so much I want to explore with that. But like now it's time to say goodbye. It's like sending my kid off to college.
Yeah. Does when you finish it, are you like, I can like put my suitcase down, I need a break? Or are you like, okay, what's next?
It's a little bit of both. One side of it is, okay, the editing. Like editing, I'm excited seeing it come together. But once it's come together and I'm just like fixing little things that most people probably aren't even going to notice,
Right.
that's work.
Right.
And so in that case, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to be done with that. But then on the other hand, it's like, man, I get to, like every day I get to work on this, and I get to just do as much as I can to make it as good as it is, or as good as it can be, while also trying to strike the balance of not getting hung up on a project that I'm squeezing for every ounce of learning experience that I can. It's like, all right, well, at some point you've learned all that you're going to learn from this project, and it is time to move on. But it's hard because I do care so much about it.
Right.
And so the trick is then moving on to the next project and finding an ability to care just as much about it, or just coming up with something that is really special to you.
I get horrible. For theater, I get very bad post-show depression.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, the longer a project goes, the worse it is. So we were saying, like, you're attached to this show forever, longer than any of us are. And the things I've produced,
Sure.
that's number one, the most artistically fulfilling thing I think you can do. But if I am there from the beginning of, let's get the rights to this play from the very beginning, build the team, everything, the dates, the designers, the venue, everything, till like the closing party when like everyone goes home, I'm devastated.
Yeah.
But same for you. I mean, like, because Grand Gesture was your baby that you wrote, directed it, produced it, edited everything. That's your baby. It's so much harder for that to end, because you poured your whole heart into it.
Yeah.
But those are the most fulfilling, and I have the greatest, fondest memories to those.
Well, and I remember we were over here shooting, and we had gotten the last shot, and I was very happy with everything that we had done here. And I was like, okay, I mean, that was the last shot of the production.
Right.
Let's do this one shot one more time. And
Yeah.
you just told me, like, I'll do anything as many times as you need. And I was like, I think I'm gonna need some time.
Yeah. But also, I think the more you do projects and the more you work, the easier it is to be like, okay, next one.
Sure.
Like when I first started acting, when I would do a play, I was such a baby about it because I was like, will I ever act again? And then the more you realize, like, if you want to keep doing it, you have more projects, then you get a tougher skin, I think.
Well, and my first short film was kind of a similar process where it took a long time to edit. It was a 33-minute short film. And when that was done, it felt like, now what? Like, I've got nothing to look forward to. I don't have any ideas for what I'm going to do next. But with this one, I do. I've got several scripts where I'm like, okay, and then I'll do this one, and then I'll do this one, and maybe then at this point I should do this one. But what I was going to say was, one of the hardest parts is now it's finished, and now people are going to see it. And this, and particularly Grand Gestures, really, like, I think every film is autobiographical in a lot of ways. I think every film. And I put a lot of me into the Grand Gesture, and to show that to other people, and to think
it's vulnerable,
and to think people might not like it. It makes me never want to show anyone anything.
Right.
But everyone that has seen it so far has had a really positive reaction, and I'm very grateful for that. But it does feel...
Yeah. My two thoughts to that is what you said about everything being, to a degree, autobiographical. I totally agree with. Yeah. And when I do a play, one of the first things I do is I just research the playwright, because it does so much homework for me. If you just get so much information of, oh, they were this, so they wrote that,
Oh, interesting.
And then I get that, like, the more involved you are with the project and the more that it's your baby, the scarier it is to put it out in the world. But, like, there's literally never been one piece of art that everybody universally has loved and has universally hated. Like, no matter what you do, someone will love what you did and someone will hate it.
Yeah.
And that no matter what you do, even if it's the best thing you ever make in your life.
Well, and how, I mean, do you read reviews? How do you feel about reviews?
Yeah, I've had dozens and dozens of reviews, and I have a system where I have two rules. One, I don't read any review, good or bad, even if people are like, did you see this review? I do not read it until the show is done.
Okay.
And I also send them all to someone, usually my friend Meredith Davis.
Okay.
And she reads all of them, and if there's anything bad in them, I will never read it. Okay. And if it's good, I will read it after the play.
Gotcha.
Because even if it's good, if it says something like David had this great character twitch where he was always scratching the back of his head, then I'm on stage and I'm aware of that. I'm like, did I do that? And I don't even want that in my head.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I have a screening. I send them to a friend, and then she'll be like, read this, skip this one.
Okay. It is a system. When it comes to film versus theater, I can imagine, as you said, you've logged more hours on stage. Does that come more naturally to you, or is it something you put more work into? It's always interesting, the difference, because theater is so different.
Right.
And it's interesting. I mean, when you see theater acting on film, you mistake it for bad acting.
Right.
And that's because it doesn't belong in film. It's just so different.
Well, I think I'm naturally more inclined just off of ability and persona to do camera, but I just happen to have done more theater.
Interesting.
So I'm not a super animated person. I have sort of like a even keeled persona and monotone speaking voice, and I'm not super expressive. So I had a lot of theater teachers really have to pull out of me like, you have got to use more inflection. You need to be in your body more. And so that I had to work out more. So I actually think that I lend my sort of natural impulses for acting lend themselves to camera more. I just happen to have done more theater, but I'm actually glad that I got trained in theater first, because I think I mean, this is just my opinion. I think it's better to get trained in theater and then rein it in for camera than to start in camera and somehow try to pull it out for theater. And that's just my own experience. But
well, and it's kind of like, you see examples of an actor who does comedy and is only known for comedy, and then he goes to drama, and certain directors and filmmakers think that's an easier transition than the other way around, drama to comedy. Mm-hmm. Like the big example is Bryan Cranston going from Malcolm in the Middle to Breaking Bad, and then before that, or rather after that, kind of another big example was Steve Carell doing Foxcatcher.
Yeah.
And you started to see this trend of comedic actors starting to get into these more serious roles, but less so the other way.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think because I think it's easier to teach people to tell the truth and be honest than it is to just be born with comedic timing.
Sure.
So if you are funny enough, if you are Steve Carell, who's hilarious because he's just like telling the truth in a hilarious way, then just go tell the truth in not a hilarious way and in not a hilarious circumstance. But I don't know. Some people just have a funny bone and some people don't. And that's such a hard, like as a director, how do you say like, yeah, like that's not funny, That's so hard.
Yeah.
But
what about for you? Are you more inclined one way or the other, comedy or
oh gosh, I've asked my friends this because I have such a hard time answering it myself. I think whatever I've been doing for a long time, I desire the other one. Yeah. If I had to pick, I think I live best in a world where I'm being sort of sarcastically funny or darkly funny in a drama. Like,
okay, when you watch yourself on film, do you get a certain? Are you able to separate? Do you see yourself as someone else, or do you say, "There's me. I'm nervous."
Right. First time I watch something, it's a wash. All I can do is critique.
Yeah. Get
that out of the way, then I can actually do it. The film, what makes the film so compelling is it really is set up that you think this is like the hero's journey. But I love that because I'm not interested in something where from the very beginning it's painted as this is the villain and this is the good person. That's not interesting. Sure. The middle is so interesting. And that the film does this so well. I mean, we were just talking about when we watched it with a group that some of the group at the end didn't like Ulysses' character, and some did, and some were rooting for me and some weren't. That gray area is really interesting to me.
I love the conversation. I
do too, yeah.
And to me, I've seen the freaking thing a million times. Like, I've stared at every single frame of it over and over and over. I'm not sick of it just yet. I still love it. It's still my baby.
Yeah.
But
But I think that if you see any form of art with people and then go out to dinner or drinks after and there's no conversation about it, that's a red flag.
Sure.
So the fact that you are getting dialogue after means
that's so
you're
cool.
successful with that. Yeah.
What's interesting though is when you sit there and you edit and you're just locked in and looking at the same frames over and over and over, you no longer can tell if it's good or not. Mm-hmm. When you watch it with someone, you can be watching it with one other person. You don't even have to look at them at all, but you immediately can kind of relate to what they're watching and whether they're saying something or not. You see, I gotta fix that. That part doesn't land. This part's dragging a little bit. You can tell. Mm-hmm. And I've watched it with several different groups of people now, and everyone's kind of got different reactions. But now it's gotten to the point where I'm comfortable. When I watch it with people, I'm not nervous anymore. I'm happy, you know. Whether something doesn't land with an individual or not, all it has to be is good enough for me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have to want to watch it. I have to like it. And I like it.
Yeah. What are you most proud of in the film? And then if you could go back and do one thing differently, what would it be?
Oh, wow. The thing I'm most proud of... I mean, I guess broad answer, the fact that we even did it, you know?
Yeah.
The fact that a couple of years ago I was thinking, nah, A, never going to do this, B, could never be a feature film. Well, now we've done it, and B, I'm going to make this into a feature film. Like, that's where that's headed. I will say, maybe if I'm thinking the one shot that I'm most proud of, it's got to be that
Fireworks?
one. Yeah.
That's my favorite. Yeah.
It's so...
That transition into that shot, I think, is the best part of the film.
Really?
Yeah. It's my favorite part of the film.
Yeah. I also, getting the fall to look any sort of... That was the biggest obstacle that we had.
That took a lot of work.
Because the fall is one thing. I knew I could do the fall. But having you be able to throw Ulysses over the banister. When I was testing it, I had both legs on there, and when I would do the fall, like, even just from that onto that soft little cushion, I mean, for 0.2 seconds, you are afraid for your life.
Yeah,
and
sure.
One of the times that I did it, I fell into the rail and hit my head on it. And another time, I was coming down, and I crashed the rail into my calf.
Is that what your injury was?
Yes. And
Okay.
so that's why I was limping the rest of the night.
Yeah, the stakes just seemed so much higher once you started limping, because we were trying to get the shots in, but you're running and like hopping, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
And like, I think it just kept getting worse because I kept walking on it. Like, that's
Right.
why it was, because it wasn't bad at first. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
God.
it got worse. Your limp got worse as the night went on.
We were tearing down everything, and it got to the point where like I could not walk.
Oh my gosh.
And John Wheatley, who is a champion, he helped us kind of tear everything down. He was even an extra in the film. He had to wheel me out on one of the carts that we had
gosh.
brought for equipment. Yeah. And Zeb and I were, starving. And so we loaded up the van, and we went to Whataburger because that's the only thing that's open at that point. And when I got out of the car, I could not put weight on that leg.
Oh my god.
Because that was the thing, that if I sat and just like let it get worse, then, and we were going to shoot the next day,
Right.
The last
Were
scene
we
with
here
you.
the next day?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I woke up that morning, I was fine.
Okay.
So it was just it's a process of, I cared so much about it. And I hope it's been as good or better, maybe not better. I've had a pretty good experience with this, of an experience for you.
I will say, I had high expectations going into it, but it greatly exceeded my expectations, both in experience and product. Which you just never know.
That's really interesting. So,
Especially the experience part, you never know. Like,
Yeah.
you don't... So much of a film experience is based off of, like, the crew and everyone's preparation.
yeah,
And you don't know that when you read a script.
that was my, and I'm going to ask you more about that. But that was one of the things I really tried to focus on, because I feel like, if the director is stressed out, everyone's stressed out. Like, and so what I wanted to do was just like shoulder all that.
Right.
And also give some of that to Adam, and just let us be the ones that are stressed. And Graham too. I think Graham was just moving at the speed of light, but I wanted everyone else to not experience that. Like,
Yeah, besides you limping, there was no stress coming there whatsoever, so...
Was that something you looked at and you just you were like, ugh.
It just sort of added to the intensity of like, okay, we're going to keep going, but like, someone need to check on the director? Because you were like hustling, and so it was like half limping, half hopping. It's like, okay, well, he's not,
I'm not laying on the floor yet.
Yeah, he's not screaming, crying, so I guess we'll keep going. But the limp kept getting worse, and so I was like, okay, well, hope he's okay. But that was it. So,
but let me get back to the question about you and your expectation going in, because that surprises me. So you and I hadn't worked on anything before. I've been aware of your acting ability for a long time. I mean, since you were in high school, or maybe even before that. But I don't, I mean, to my understanding, I don't think you've seen anything that so, I mean, what was your kind of...
Yeah, so my expectation wasn't built off of seeing your work.
Sure.
It was, so you sent me the email, like, I want to do this, and I was like, sure. And at that point, I didn't have expectation. But then, based off the conversations I had with you, where I could see how thoughtful you were and passionate you were, and how seriously you were taking it, then I had high expectations. Because I have lots of projects I will work on with very talented people, and you can tell in a conversation where they're like, wait, what about props? Yeah, we'll figure that out like on the day of. And you're like, oh, my expectations are now very low.
Sure.
You know, so it wasn't off of your work. It was just off of how seriously and professionally you were taking the project. Then it was around like when we had the rehearsal here in the house, then my expectations went higher. Because it was like,
cool.
he knows his stuff, and he's going to dedicate himself to us all turning out the best work we can.
And that was the moment too for me where, and I knew you were my guy. Like I knew, okay, David's going to be Lawrence. Like I need that. But that moment sitting with you and just hearing you read those lines, I was like, oh yeah. I was like, oh, this is going to be good. Because so much of the film is that character.
When you showed me the first shot of me like putting on the jacket and smiling and saying wish me luck, and the camera quality of that, I was like, this is going to look great.
You know what else is cool? Was the fact that, just going back to kind of conversations about the film when people see it. Lauren upstairs, when we watched it, the first time she saw it, she noted the color symbolism.
Yeah.
And that's so cool because it's one of the things that I think about, but I don't think other people are really going to think about it.
Right.
And to see that be recognized by someone the first time she watched it, that's just so cool.
It's great. I mean, first of all, she's a very like visually astute person.
Yeah.
So that when she said that, I was like, of course you're the one that clocked that.
Yeah.
But it's also cool for two other reasons. One, when you make a really conscious decision on something that's very small and you're like, maybe no one will get it. And then when they do, it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
And then also it's just another example of you never know what someone's takeaway would be. Because other people could watch that 100 times and never clock that.
Yeah.
But just one more thing I'll say. It was fun when I saw it with my family because I know them so well that I know when they're lying and they don't actually like something, and they all actually did like it.
Oh, that's so cool. Well,
so I was like,
I'll take
he
your
might
word for
not
it.
know, like they're going to tell him that they loved it, but I'll know for real. But they actually really did.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
What do you have coming up? I know things are just kind of...
Yeah, I'm in the middle. I mean, all theater gigs have been canceled. I'm in the middle of doing a short film right now, and that's been fun. So I have one more day of shooting with that. And then in January or February, I'm going to do the second season of a web series I did called Don't Suck.
I did. I've been looking at that.
And then I'm trying to produce something on camera, which we've talked about, that I have not produced on camera. So I'm learning a lot about it. It's such a different animal than theater, but I'm very excited for it. One, to learn from it, but also just the distribution and the power and the possibilities you have for something on camera versus theater.
Yeah.
It's night and day. So,
I mean, it's been 11 months and change since we shot Grand Gesture.
yeah.
Shortly after that, you shot Screen Test.
Yes, I did Screen Test by Courtney Romano. And that was fun because I filmed that right after the Grand Gesture, and they could not have been more different.
Yeah.
Because Screen Test is a mockumentary about ridiculous fitness people auditioning for a reality TV show, and they're bizarre. And
you're
great.
hilarious in it.
And
so good.
and my character was so fun. But he could not have been more different than Lawrence in the grand gesture. But I love that. I love ping ponging back and forth.
I wanna give you challenges. Like I wanna see what you can do. Like I've told you this before. I want your film reel in 3 years to be like all my stuff.
I'm so okay with that. Yeah.
I'm lucky to say that I've been able to tell stories that I really care about, and I can't thank you enough for helping me tell some of those stories.
Well, I mean, I feel very fortunate that we have this connection.
Yeah.
And I just want to make more. We're gonna make more, but it's very exciting. I mean, this could have gone either way, and it was.
Yeah.
I had the best time, and the film is fantastic, and we should make like a goal of once a year we turn out something, big or small, but we should do something once a year.
I loved working with you. I want to work with you all the time. I want you to be in all my movies, and yeah.
Ditto. Let's do it.
Yeah. Grand Gesture coming soon. Award-winning film. We're gonna get you some hardware, man. Like you're gonna get a Best Actor one way or another.
Good. As long as I have a physical thing as well, like a ribbon, a trophy. Okay. I'll make it myself. I don't care. But
sure. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Yeah.
Here we go.
You use your candle. There we go.
Cheers. To you.